Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Irongeek Cast number 196, Fire Eye Black Eye. I thought about calling it Fire Eye Brown Eye, but that I thought might be over the top.
You got to be politically correct. You can't say anything that might offend somebody.
You know me.
We are all about the political correctness here, and the social justice too. Right on that.
And Logan seems to be back
here. The social justice too.
I got it fixed. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Fix it again.
Perfect. Can you hear it now?
I hear a baby crying.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I got it. Nope, just a baby crying.
Okay.
Actually, we can hear you also.
I like this guy. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you sound like you're in another room.
You also.
I think you're also overdriving your treble.
I can hear you, but you sound like you're in another room. What is with the delay? That's from like 10 seconds ago.
Overdriving your treble.
I can hear you, but you sound like you're in another room.
Oh,
Adrian, are you feeding back or what?
Somebody's feeding back, and we got like a 10-second delay repeating.
I'm turning off my YouTube stream to make sure it's not coming in.
And we got like a 10-second delay repeating. It's me again.
No, I think it's Barry. I saw the.
Hold on, let me see. Hold on, let me fix that.
I'm muting everybody.
Yeah, don't play the YouTube in the background. That's
That's
what I was doing a second ago.
Oops.
It's
Are we
like
good to go?
it's like the 2000 version of calling the radio station with the radio on in the background.
Do I win something? What do I win, Logan? I win something. Hey, Jack is here too. Wow, we got like all the people coming. Oh, it's excellent. All right, guys. So today we are gonna be bashing FireEye and SolarWinds quite a bit because that's pretty much what everyone's talking about. So, yep, we're gonna jack them off too, Logan. Yep, that's the motion I was going for. So, if you are living under a rock, you might not know that FireEye got breached about a week ago, and they didn't initially announce too many details about it. They're still in their investigation phase, but they've now released not only some tools to recognize if you've been breached and been breached by some of the tools that were stolen by them, like their red team tools, but they also released a fairly detailed write-up on how they figured out that SolarWinds was the culprit behind their attack. And essentially, there was an update mechanism built into SolarWinds that had been compromised by an attacker, and it was going to that attacker's command and control server and pulling down and executing commands on the networks that were infected with this SolarWinds Orion product that is actually pretty widespread. So it's not just a FireEye issue, but the federal government uses it everywhere. So that means that the Treasury was hit, as well as a whole bunch of other government agencies. Essentially,
Well, it explains
to them for a while.
And that explains where the breach from the Treasury came from as well.
Right. So we're working with the name Sunburst right now as the working name for this SolarWinds command and control virus infrastructure thing that's going on. That's the code name they're using is Sunburst. And Cribs on Security actually wrote up a little thing today about how they took over the C2 domain that was being used by the threat actor behind this. And I'm trying to share my screen, but I don't know if it's happening.
It is now.
All right. So remember when Marcus Hutchins took over that domain and he stopped that botnet from propagating, and he was a hero for an hour, and then we arrested him at DEF CON later? Well, now they've taken over this command and control domain and used it as a kill switch to turn off communication between the already infected machines and their command and control server. This is, of course, assuming that they don't have a backup one coded in there somewhere, because this thing was really well written. So it wouldn't even start doing crap for 2 weeks after it was installed. It would just lay dormant 2 weeks, and then it would start doing things. It was a very well done attack. If you look at my show notes, I actually have some of my commentary that I had written about what I read here. So essentially, a lot of people are saying it's a nation state. A lot of people are directly attributing that to Russia, saying that since FireEye often goes after Russia, it kind of makes sense. But we don't know for a fact that it's Russia. But it's a lot of people think it is. So their C2 subdomains that they used with this main domain that is in the show notes is pretty clever the way they did this. So in the certificate, when you're connecting via RDP, it's got the host name in there. So they, for each host that was infected, created a C2 domain. It had to be done automatically because they probably had a lot of hosts that were infected. But the C2 domain had the name of the host machine. So you could do a Shodan search for a box that said like there's a unique box name on your network and you were running SolarWinds and you want to know if you got pwned. You could do a search for that computer name with the subdomain, and you could see if they had created a record for it. And if they had created a record for it, it's pretty good chance that machine was infected. Yeah, so you would have to use like Shodan probably, because now that we've taken over the C2 domain, I'm sure they killed a bunch of those subdomains. But historically, you could see it, maybe going back a week or two, which is cool. Also, they were really clever. They used different credentials for initial access than they did for when they did lateral movement. So they wouldn't just reuse creds off the bat, which is pretty clever and is a good way to make sure you're not easily getting caught. They also had built their own custom Cobalt Strike Beacon, which, look, it's not rocket science, but it's cool that they built this. And the way they built it is it worked in memory completely. So there was no disk touching whatsoever. It was all executed in memory. Essentially, they'd hollow out a DLL and just inject it in there. It's an old technique, but it worked well, and it didn't get caught. That's not how they caught it. So also, rather than creating a new task for getting persistence in a computer, they would alter a task that was already there, and they'd alter it in such a way that it would still execute its original command, but also pull down a copy of their command control software and then run it automatically. So it didn't stay on disk. There was a registry key that would, not a registry key, but a schedule task that would go out and pull it back down. So it was always running in memory, never touching disk. So if you're doing a forensic analysis, the only thing you're going to see is that service that has been changed that now pulls down their executable, which is also clever. Also, they removed all their tools after execution. So they policed their brass, so to speak. So there was nothing left over. It was, you're going to examine a machine, unless you've got a snapshot of when they had their tools on that machine and you can extract them from there, you're not getting them because they're gone. Pretty good OPSEC, pretty good everything all around. So it was a well-written command and control thing. And like we said, that we've taken over, not we, but the real security experts have taken over the C2 domain, which is excellent. Now, their FTP server had its password on GitHub in plain text. People are trying to theorize how they got pwned. So this could have been one of the ways. So there was both this password and a password for their update mechanism that were found out. And this was in their GitHub repo going back. It was a very simple password, SolarWinds123, right, for an account.
How does like a security company have that?
Because they got to deal with idiot users, and you're telling the idiot user to download something from your FTP server, and they're like, how do I log in? And you're like, use the username SolarWinds and the password SolarWinds123, and then they can download the software. But if you're going to do something that's stupid, you should probably make sure that account doesn't have write access, not just read access. It's like if you can push stuff via that account, that's not smart. So, yep. So they got this. Hi, team. And the guy was like, yep, you can just get in that way. I was able to upload a test, proof of concept. In other words, open FTP where you have the ability to upload stuff. And then they use that same FTP server to distribute their software. So that's one way they could have gotten in, as well as dumb people just giving out creds to stuff with creds that can upload shit. It's not smart. Yeah, so the SolarWinds 123 thing was kind of blowing up on Twitter today. That's why I'm spending some time on it. I thought it was interesting. Yeah, the password for the secure server was SolarWinds 123. Genius. All right, moving forward. We got a lot more stuff to cover about this. This was a year ago that the security expert sent them a message telling them that they have an FTP server with upload access using a password SolarWinds123, and apparently it still worked until just a few days after the attack. So that's another thing. Microsoft is stepping in now. If you're running software that's compromised from SolarWinds, and they have this the signed DLL that's also co-signed by Kaspersky for some reason, but if you've got this software running on your computer, they're going to automatically pull it off for you. They're doing you a solid. I don't like Microsoft having the ability to remove software from my computer without my permission via their update mechanism. It's just for security reasons, for my security reasons. Like, they could then use that same mechanism to get rid of all my wares, right? But in this case, I think it's kind of cool. It's Defender, and so, right. They also have a GPO that you can use to detect and remove the software that they've created, right? Nice. Different ways of doing it. Defender is going to remove it automatically if it sees it. Yeah, this goes all into the details on how Microsoft's planning to help customers from their own idiocy, which good for them. Yeah, so both this article here that is just like, this is the same shit as I just clicked on here from ZDNet, but one's from Microsoft, one's from ZDNet talking about the Microsoft article. Trojanized SolarWinds apps to be isolated starting tomorrow, right? That's December 16th, so that's what's today? Today is December 16th. That's today. Yep. Consider any device with the binary as compromised. DHS put out an emergency directive also. So we know that FireEye, the Treasury, Department of Commerce, Telecommunications and Information Administration, Department of Health, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency. CISA was hit with it. So is DHS and the State Department. So, look, just because they were running software that was essentially backdoored doesn't necessarily mean the attacker had the time. Well, if it's Russia, they probably did. But if it's somebody less advanced, I mean, pretty much anybody who had SolarWinds Orion on their computer was now giving backdoored access to these attackers. So they had a lot of stuff to go through. God knows what they're able to exfiltrate. But
all right,
Logan,
I'm a tag in here, man, just for a second. So I speak pretty regularly overseas in the Ukraine, and so I speak with Russian hackers all the time. And I can tell you just by one major piece in this that it wasn't the Russians. This is most likely a group, though, but it's not the Russians. And the reason I can tell you that is because you said they use Cobalt Strike, right?
Yep.
They hate American tools, especially Cobalt Strike. They would never use it.
But
they pride themselves in making their own shit. And so from that ego trip alone, I can tell, and it's nothing against them. I can totally get down with understanding, like, build your own shit. But the combination of the infiltration and the exfiltration method combined with the custom DLL job, it tells you there's two very different levels of skill set there. And so someone with the ability to build a customized DLL package payload with the ability to inject that into and bypassing source code signing, that shows an incredibly sophisticated level of experience. So you're looking at a senior to principal level person, but someone leveraging an old school tactic from something like Cobalt Strike beaconing, that's something from you see at like an intermediate to maybe low level senior. And so two very different people. Because the issue with using Cobalt Strike on anyone's network anywhere is the fact that because Cobalt Strike is so common, almost every major high-end security system is looking for it actively, like Carbon Black, for instance, which is an incredibly common tool. And so there's absolutely no way that someone like a Russian would use it. If they were actually state-sponsored, they'd run over-the-wire, under-the-wire level tactics and techniques. They wouldn't leverage anything that's mainstream. And so their code base would be completely customized. So maybe the first guy, definitely not Russian. The second guy, maybe, based on the sophistication level. Maybe state-sponsored or just really high level, looking to cash in on the access. But the first guy, probably just someone who managed to get access to it and then had no idea how to run it, kind of like the Twitter kid. But instead of dropping something like a fake Bitcoin scam, they actually gave it to somebody for access, and that person exploited it, and then leveraged that access to get information. So maybe the second person might be state-sponsored, but definitely not the first.
Oh yeah, that's actually really that's a good point. As far as the whole Cobalt Strike Beacon goes, I have read like many different states. We had a framework we put out called Marble framework, and it's literally used for false attribution. So you want to make something look like another state did it. You take your executables and crap, you run it through it, and it'll like maybe inject some Chinese characters in it or do whatever to make it look like it's another adversary.
Yeah.
I'm sure also Russia and China and everybody else is doing the same thing with their own versions of that.
Yeah. So the first thing I would point out is they would never use that either. And part of the issue with that is that when you look at it from that perspective, other people can simply auto-generate those samples with automations through Python, for instance, and then upload those samples for analysis to analyze what those generated attributes would be, to then automatically identify intentional false flags for effectively, in essence, time wasting. I guess is the best way to describe it. I don't know what there's got to be a term for it. Effectively identifying false flag attempts to effectively waste your time and resources analyzing them. But when you start looking at people trying to plant false flags, they're not going to plant false flags by using a tool. They're going to go and get actual assets to do it. So they're going to go to someone who actually speaks English natively, who's from America, who's got an American operating system on an American laptop that's been aged for several years. So it's going to look like what it's supposed to, because it's actually going to be what it's supposed to be. And
also,
so,
these DLL files were signed by SolarWinds. So
and that's what I'm saying. It got through the code signing process.
Binary, so they had to be on SolarWinds network. Just like supply.
They were.
Yeah.
If you look at the breakdown of it, Reversing Lab, I don't know if you've seen the article, but Reversing Labs has done some really good research on it. And one of the things that they showed was it was injected into the Orion's effectively DevOps process. And so they were able to get far enough in to where they could access their effectively CI/CD processes and start injecting code. So my thought is probably this. What ended up happening was an initial access through some kind of remote access tool based on exploiting the system's access through the FTP. An employee probably pulled one of the files off of it and opened it or something because they were curious what it was. And maybe it did or didn't do what it was expected to do, and they ignored it. And then they ended up having an access point from there. And then from that perspective, they were able to laterally move, which they mentioned they laterally moved to the secondary credential. That's probably where that secondary credential came from. And then they were laterally moving inside of SolarWinds. But given the fact that they didn't pay attention to someone who told them a year in advance that they found a SolarWinds credential online on a public-facing thing, they probably didn't analyze the fact that they had been compromised in the first place either. And so they probably either A, didn't know, or B, didn't care that they had a remote access tool on their systems. And maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they did, and they thought they removed it, but they had a secondary. Because that's an incredibly common tactic is when you pop a box, you drop one tool, which is your initial, and then you infect again through a secondary method to maintain persistence in case the primary is discovered. Right. And so you have a first and secondary access point, and then you start to laterally move to add additional points of infection so that you can maintain your persistence through multiple points.
Excellent. Very good analysis. I thank you for that, Logan. Yeah. So I went through the FireEye's, what they shared. I haven't seen the other write-up that you're talking about yet, but man, it's got a lot of decent information in there.
I'll link it to you. 1 second.
Pop it in the private chat on the right side of StreamYard. Dead air. We've got some dead air. All right, here we go.
There you go. I just dropped it in private.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the detailed reversing labs. All right. This I've seen before. The business layer DLL.
Yeah. That's a DLL that they use to inject into the process.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Man, that's badass. They got access to the devs, a devs box or all.
Yeah,
the devs.
I haven't had it. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing, but in essence, that's what I would guess.
Make would include their script DLL. Oh, that's badass.
Yeah. So my expectation is most likely the FTP server was the point of entry. They dropped the file on the FTP server with right privileges. That was a malicious backdoored file. A dev probably pulled that file off to look at it because out of curiosity, that's what devs do. They see something on the server when they're putting new stuff out there. They didn't know what it was, so they pulled it over to look at it. Once they opened it up or ran it or whatever the case may be, I don't know what the file was. But whenever they used that file for whatever purpose, once they did that, it executed the malicious payload, infected that developer. It would have given them access to a lot of other things, including other credentials, and then they just laterally moved from there. And they would have had access at a developer level pretty much to everything in the CI/CD process. And then on their boxes, typically access to all of the other projects and all of their files. And so that would also mean certificates. They would have access to the certificates. Developers a lot of times have the certs as well. Yep. And so it was just a shit show from there.
So they actually have a signature for it in Security Onion now. They pulled from ET Threats. So it's finding it. If it's on your network, you're going to see it in your IDS or your SIEM or whatever you got running now, which is cool. I wanted to show that here, but it looks like it's far enough back that I'd have to dig for it. So essentially, I just communicated with our C2 server over HTTP and then got my alerts through here to see what it was like. But now you just see all the other crap that I'm doing. Which,
by the way, Delchi, if you can hear me. I think we already have 6 people in, and I don't think I can add anybody else.
I'll leave. It's fine.
No, let's not do that. No.
All right. So, yeah, that's what we got so far. Microsoft's gonna wipe it from your machine if you got it on there, which is good. And we got Dave's take on this whole thing too, which I thought it's always fun to play Dave talking.
It's good to have you. I think the most
I always wonder if he's wearing pants.
I'm
pretty sure I saw the behind the scenes. He wasn't.
He said he wasn't wearing pants that day.
The Washington Post is implying that it was Russia, but what do we know at this point?
We don't know a whole lot because FireEye right now is still in its investigation phase. What we know is that the sophistication levels that we typically see from these types of organized groups often lead to what we call advanced persistent threats or nation states like Russia, China, etc. We don't know for sure, but Russia would make sense because FireEye has been actively going after Russia for a long period of time, both from exposing their intelligence operations, them infiltrating critical infrastructure here in the United States, as well as a number of different areas. So FireEye coming out with this and being very transparent about it has been a very good thing. In fact, he just recently released all the tools that were stolen. They stole a bunch of tools called red teaming tools, which are hacker tools that private companies use to simulate these types of attacks. They publish ways of identifying them so that they don't do any harm to any other organization out there if Russia were to use them against the world.
Right. So the nature of this attack, it's not so much.
It's interesting to note also that those red team tools that they're talking about, there were no 0 days in there. Which gets back to my previous thing again, which is it's likely not the Russians, because the Russians wouldn't care what tools you have, and they wouldn't touch those tools anyways, because it's very, very likely in organizations that have sophisticated techniques and tactics and advanced tool sets like 0 day capabilities, the last thing you're ever going to want to touch are those payloads. And that's because it's very, very likely those things are the most protected assets within the company or organization. So the second you touch those, it's absolutely going to trigger an alarm.
and any senior to principal level person would know that. And
Like,
so it's very unlikely they go after
backdooring
that.
your own payloads so that they'll beacon out to
Yeah,
they're used.
exactly. And a lot of times those tools are backdoored, and they know that. And so stealing someone's tools, the first thing I would say is just by looking at the statements that FireEye has made about those tools, it tells me it's very unlikely that they're sophisticated tools in relation to completely customized, weaponized tool sets, which are things that I've done talks on in the past. Those are something that you would, if it was incredibly dangerous, FireEye would have said these are incredibly dangerous tools. We've got to find them. We've got to get them off the markets. Immediately patching out there for these things, but they didn't. They said that they're relatively non-destructive in nature and relatively yeah.
I think about
and they really
more open source tools too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is Russians wouldn't care about those tools, and most experienced and seasoned people would take one look at the tools, would recognize the names, and say it's not worth touching.
It's like,
and so,
you recompile Unicats, good for you.
Yeah. And my thing is this: if someone had the ability to infiltrate FireEye, the things that they would steal would be customer contact lists. It would be, which I'm not mistaken, FireEye said that was for the most part completely untouched.
They know.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, but FireEye was able to identify the DLL files of Orion being modified inside SolarWinds. The level of intricacy that they went through to identify these things, they did an incredible level of detail. So it's very likely they would have known that file was accessed at some point because it would show read logs inside your logs. Every time you access a file on a server, it generates a log of someone accessing it. So there would be a log
that in their blog post. You can identify the read. Essentially, it would read, write, delete, and then read, write, delete again, and it's like
and so there would be system logs for that. The other thing is the fact that they did not cover up their trail in terms of logs and other things, or at least modify the logs to where the logs were still present, but they modified the specific actions that they did. And so you can easily do that if you have specific levels of permissions on certain systems. And so the fact that that was never done or even attempted, from what I understand, from what I've read, it goes again to tell me that it's a very different mix of people here. And so in regards to the FireEye piece, again, it seems like it's just a random fluke where someone, again, they got lucky. They took 1,000,001 pot shot into the universe and they were able to get in. Or maybe they bribed access. I don't know. But again, the things that you would target as a senior level or principal level person, I don't want your tools. I want your customer lists. I want their contact information. I want information on your stock and internal workings, emails from executives and high-level profile personnel, because the money you can make from the stock market is in the tens to hundreds of millions. From that information, you could find that, they're about to do a secret deal with a small startup over here. I'm going to go buy 10,000 shares, and it's going to go from 30 cents to $300 a share. All of a sudden, I just made tens of millions of dollars. That data is incredibly valuable. Your customer list, I can take that and sell it to literally anybody that competes against you, and it's worth millions of dollars. The data by itself is worth hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars because of the contact information and fidelity level of that data is coming directly from confirmed sources inside of things like CRMs. And so you know for a fact the data is accurate, and that data to any vendor is worth an astronomical amount of money. There are vendors that exist solely to sell you customer data lists, and they make millions of dollars a year. So again, all of the data sets that were worth millions and millions of dollars, like FireEye source code, all the things that I would care about stealing, they didn't go near. And that tells you that it's very likely it's an intermediate, like I said, to low-level senior person, and they went after the things that they found exciting and valuable, which is nothing that was actually valuable.
But you also got to comment, they did have really good OPSEC for somebody at that level.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Is like there's a lot of stuff here that just doesn't add up. 2 and 2 is making like 37.
It doesn't match any of the signatures they have for any of the states. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like
this was funded group, but even there,
it's not even that
a group. You know,
this is like some kids hanging out on freaking Slack. Maybe a couple of mid 20-year-olds, maybe early 30s at best in terms of experience level. Maybe 5 to 15 years total range here. You're not talking an incredibly sophisticated group. You're talking about somebody who took a moonshot and they actually landed it. But it's not Russians. Again, they would cover their tracks so damn well.
It's
If
what
you
a
look at
Russian would say.
yeah, he's a Russian. No, I'm not. I promise. What am I? No, it's but no, it's just there's too many inconsistencies here to be a high level sophisticated attack like this. But then like the performance level and then the lack of any kind of skill set in terms of hiding your capabilities, the level of access that they had versus the level of value of the targets that they went after. None of this makes sense. Again, it's like you're looking at a mid to low level, mid to maybe, like you said, it almost feels like maybe 3 people and maybe 4 or 5 total, but none of this is nation state. It's the job was poorly done. I hate to say that, but like they really screwed the pooch on this, and I'm not talking FireEye. Like, if nothing else, I would have stolen their database. Like, their database of just sheer raw samples, because that's
I mean,
worth...
look, unless they're monitoring everything they're doing egress-wise, how would they know that they didn't get that? Like,
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, even if you did monitor egress, you're monitoring egress based on what you can see. If I send out an encrypted connection from internal to external, unless you're decrypting and re-encrypting your data in real time, which a company like FireEye is going to have a really big challenge doing.
you can't afford that to a single firewall.
Yeah.
It's going to be too much.
Yeah. Well, if you take it in pieces, you can.
I mean, look, if you've got like a cert on everybody's box, and then you're using the firewall, and you're distributing it, you can do it. But I don't think.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, even if you didn't take the whole database, you just took a couple hundred file samples. Those file samples you would go after would be incredibly high value samples, like Stuxnet and other nation state equivalent samples that FireEye gets that other companies aren't typically given because of the high fidelity relationship. And so you could exfil incredibly valuable malware just by doing that. And those samples alone, the source code from that is worth millions of dollars per sample. And so again, you're looking at another way to target high value assets that, again, they just didn't do. And so it really makes me wonder, like, what the hell were they doing with the access, and what were they really looking for? Because the tools almost sound like it almost sounds like either I came in and the very specific thing that I was looking for, that I knew I was looking for, I didn't find, and so I just took whatever I could, which would be the files that they took.
If they only got like a dev subnet though? Maybe they don't have, like, maybe they use VLANs and this guy didn't know how to VLAN hop. It's like
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it. If you can get in, okay, I will say this for FireEye, because I've worked with FireEye for years now. If you have the ability to get inside of FireEye, it's either A, because you bribed your way in, B, because someone seriously screwed up, or C, you know what you're doing enough to get in. And so if it's number 2 or number 3, you did a really good job just getting in. Like, major props for that, because you got past FireEye, and FireEye is a really good system when it's configured properly. But to be able to get in and then go after the stuff that you did,
it's like the Bitcoin thing with Twitter all over again.
Yeah, literally, it's either A, it was bribery, or B, you just got super lucky with social engineering, and like you had like a really great SE with maybe a connection that they like milked over months and months and months and established a relationship with, and then exploited that connection after a long period of time, and then they just happened to get in. Or it's like I said, or they got bribed. But it's incredibly unlikely that they got bribed. So it's more than likely the second one. And then they got in, and then they got had, and then they just, they literally just, they screwed the pooch. Like, there's so much stuff. Like, oh my god. Give me 5 minutes. I'm foaming at the mouth over here, man. I'm drooling. I'm just like, man, all the stuff you could get from FireEye. Oh man.
They've got some prime stuff to take.
Oh, absolutely. There is so much juice there, man, to squeeze. It's just, again, it just blows my mind that they didn't do anything but take some some tools? Really?
Yeah.
Like,
Unless that's all that FireEye's telling us about. Make it look,
they wouldn't lie to us. FireEye wouldn't lie to us, man. Not FireEye. They have way too much riding on this. Like, the amount of money that they stand to lose if they lie because of Fed regulations, man, no way. No way. You're talking serious jail time.
Maybe it was CrowdStrike. Maybe they did it.
They got to compete somehow. They got to compete somehow.
That's great. All right, so my next section I put in the show notes, if we're done talking about this for now, we can always revisit it. It's just 0-day stuff. So we've got HPE disclosing a critical 0-day in their server management software. So this Hewlett-Packard, HPE. And by server management software, I'm talking about their HPE SIM management and remote support automation solution. And it works with HPE servers, storage, and networking stuff, like the HPE ProLiant Gen 10 and Gen 9 servers. So this RCE vulnerability is affecting just that product, the Systems Insight Manager, right? The SIM, which is not what I normally call SIM, but whatever. It's a 9.8 out of 10. I'm surprised I didn't get a 10, honestly. There's a lack of validation of user supplied data that can result in deserialization of untrusted data, making it impossible for an attacker, not impossible, making it possible for an attacker to leverage it and execute code on servers. Now, I don't think, would this be exposed to the actual internet? Would you expose, because this is kind of what I'm thinking of. This is kind of reminding me of the remote access stuff that's built into like a Dell server or like the what do they call that, the iDRAC or like that.
It really depends. Some people make it WAN accessible for remote management, and some people don't. It really depends on the org. In a lot of cases, for well-built ones, they'll have like a remote access gateway of some kind, typically via VPN, and then you can typically access it through some kind of either jump box or direct access, depending on, I guess, how you have everything set up. Sometimes they do OOBM setup. Sometimes they do VPN with OOBM setup. Sometimes they land it off based on geographics. It really depends on the environment, but I don't see it being likely with most modern days designs putting this direct access directly to the internet. There's going to be something in the way.
Yeah. I agree. Next, we're going to be talking about Glassdoor. They had a CFRF vulnerability on their website, despite having a library in place that was designed to make that not be a thing. So it was a token called GD token. It was in use to prevent CSRF from occurring on endpoints, and at first glance, it looked like it was secure. However, a security researcher did some testing and found, actually by accident, that he missed copying an underscore when he was trying to test something out, and he found out that essentially he was able to reproduce this accidental finding where you can make a change on a token from a let me just read it. Generating CFR token from account A, stripping the first character and attempting to use the token on account B proved successful. So they have two different kind of accounts, one for job seekers and one for employers, but they both use the same CSRF protection. So you could obtain a token from a firm's server and hijack accounts from logged in victims. You would be able to add fake reviews, delete resumes, apply, create job postings, pretty much anything you could do as a logged in user. Seems very similar to just capturing a login cookie to me, but I'm sure it's more complicated than that, obviously. But they gave him $3,000 for that vulnerability, and it was actually $2,500 financial reward and a $500 bonus from HackerOne. So, yeah, that's nice.
That's depressing. That is depressing. Yeah, that's like you're looking at a 50 to 100K thing right there, man.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about
For
it from
the
this
right people, yeah.
Yeah, because think about it from this perspective. If you're on Glassdoor and you're an HR department, all I need to do is go and create a job description under your company's name and then apply for it. And then build my resume to the job description I made for you and literally just show up for an interview. Be like, hey, I'm here for this interview. And then you literally show them the job posting. And then you reply back to your own message with the, hey, we're interested. We'd love to set up an appointment with you. And then you're literally going to be walked into the building and they're going to struggle to figure out what the hell's going on. Like,
pretty funny, actually.
yeah, like you could literally create your own job at whatever dream company you wanted to work at just by doing that. Like, because no one's going to question the message from their own system on a vendor that they use regularly, like Glassdoor. They're just going to go with it.
Yeah. Next vulnerability we've got is in Golang. It's 3 critical vulnerabilities within the Go language's XML parser. So this would also lead to Go-based SAML implementations being authenticated, I guess is the right word, when they're not supposed to be. That's what I would say, right? Authenticated, Logan? Essentially, it's an XML SAML. So that's authentication right there. So
this could actually be incredibly problematic because a lot of SAML solutions allow you to access more than one application at a time. They'll share the SAML authentication module.
It's like
and they'll have
and
they'll have multiple applications or applets that allow you to use that same token everywhere. And so if you auth, you're in, and that could be bad.
Yep, right what you said. There's no patch also, so that's also fun. Yep. The fixed version has been released for the individual Go-based SAML projects, these 3 right here, but the implementation itself is still broken. That's great. Next, we've got a 0-click Wormable RCE vulnerability that was in Jabber that got fixed 6 days ago. I'm a big fan of Wormable vulnerabilities. Ever since the MySpace days when I saw Sammy Camquire become my friend, you know, not my real friend, but on MySpace he was everybody's friend for a little bit. But yeah, these are fun. So this one was originally patched in September, but it's been unpatched, repatched. So this bug did not require any user input. It was wormable. The payload was delivered by an instant message. So you could spread this everywhere very quickly throughout the corporation's Jabber. It's like an internal messaging protocol developed by Cisco. XRPP also XMPP? No, X something PP. I don't know. If you do use it, go get that
XMPP.
XMPP, thank you. Get the off the record plugin so you can encrypt your crap. Anyway, patch it. Patch it, update it, patch it again. That's what you got to do. They released a patch for the first time this happened, and then it happened again. Cost of their patch, so go patch again. That's essentially it. So when one patch breaks something, and then it's the way you install a patch to fix something, and it breaks something else. It happens all the time. So that's been fixed. Half of all Docker instances are vulnerable to at least one critical vulnerability. This kind of builds on the work we saw last week from one of our regulars who popped something in the show notes, and I'm forgetting his name now. But it was a gift from Cappy, I think it was. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. So regardless, it's essentially just saying, you got Docker and you're exposing it to the internet, you're an idiot. Also, these images, if you're not dumb enough to be exposing your API to the internet, and at least you got some stuff going for you, but these images themselves are often built on vulnerable libraries and implementations. So you can create your Docker Compose file, and then you can specify use a specific version of Apache and what else not, and then a new version comes out, but people are still pulling down your version and building their stuff, and it's got a vulnerability in it and never gets patched. Yeah, like that. That's what I'm talking about. Vulnerable Docker images. So we got MySQL images that are running versions that are just no good. Yeah. So Sonatype, they make a cool repository manager called Nexus, if you've ever played with it, if you're trying to do like patch management in your organization. But I think 11% of open source components consumed by developers have at least one known vulnerability. But this can vary significantly across programming languages and package repositories. So if you look at a 2019 analysis of the NPM registry, about 40% of all hosted packages relied on other packages that then had flaws. So it's like you are installing a package of MySQL, but that's going to depend on this library that was written by this guy in high school, and it's going to pull that down and install that as part of your MySQL installation. And then nobody's updating that. And yeah. That's just the example off the top of my head. You got a better one, Logan? Yeah, so you think you're getting okay, it's got the latest version of Nginx. How do you say Nginx properly? There's a proper way.
Nginx.
Nginx. Yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
You think I know. I always now I know there's a proper way to say it, but in my head, whenever I read it, I still read it the wrong way. But yeah, so Nginx. Say you like I pulled down the latest version of Nginx in my Docker repo, but when you're installing stuff in your Docker Compose file, and it goes to install that using whatever package management is built into your underlying OS, be it like apt, it's going to also pull down all the other crap that it relies on, and sometimes that crap is no good. Is what I'm saying here. Yeah. All right. Speaking of, we got some malicious Ruby gems in the supply chain attacks targeting cryptocurrency. So malicious Ruby gem packages have been discovered that are being used in a supply chain attack to steal cryptocurrency from unsuspecting users. Ruby Gems is a package manager for the Ruby programming language that allows developers to download and integrate code into their stuff. Anyone can upload a gem to the repository and allows threat actors to upload malicious packages into a repository in hopes that a different developer will then integrate it into their program. Like I was just talking about, this is an actual intentional exploitation of that. You know, it's like now we got somebody intentionally uploading software.
It's a supply chain attack.
Yeah. So there's two malicious Ruby packages that they're talking about here, and they go into a bit more detail here. Pretty Color and Ruby Bitcoin were both infected. So people would incorporate, say, Ruby Bitcoin into their project, right? And they build it, and it looks all good, and then they publish it and make it live. And also maybe they used Pretty Color to make some pretty colors. But what happens? Well, it's backdoored. So, yeah. That's essentially the essence of that right there. We've got ransomware attack causing some billing delays in Missouri City, and this is totally in the wrong section, but I'm going to cover it now anyway. So, Missouri suffered a ransomware attack last week, and it continues to disrupt their services and now payroll. So, yeah, that's the whole thing. We got a hacker group. Their new malware is abusing Google and Facebook services. Molerat's cyber espionage group, which sounds like something out of a movie, has been using a recent spear phishing campaign, fresh malware that relies on Dropbox, Google Drive, and Facebook for command and control. They've been active since 2012, and they are considered to be a low-budget division of a larger group, Gaza Cyber Gang. Now, I don't know how big Gaza Cyber Gang is, but the fact that they've got a subgroup says something.
Who names these people?
Apparently, some people in Gaza who have a cyber gang. And it's better than being like apt 217 or like
APT group 34 or whatever.
bouncing
Sounds better, honestly.
bouncing bonobo or some shit like that. It's makeup.
At least Fancy Bear sounds good.
Mole Rat threat actor has been using two backdoors they created. One called Sharp Stage and another one called Drop Book. And another undocumented malware downloader called MoleNet. They are using Dropbox to extract stolen data. A lot of places are not going to question Dropbox traffic going out, so kind of makes sense. One of the lures they're using is a PDF file that is talking about recent talks between Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. The document only shows a summary of the contents, and the people are instructed to download it. It's, of course, password protected and hosted on Dropbox or Google Drive. And when they extract it, there we go. So there's your methodology right there. They're pulling down an executable file. They're running it. And it is communicating with Dropbox, SharpStage, Spark. And then it's going out to Facebook for some reason and Dropbox. Very complicated, stupid C2 framework they've built.
Poorly built at that.
Look, a lot of people aren't going to block Facebook. So.
Yeah, if you notice the name on the PDF, if you scroll back up, I just want to make sure I'm seeing this right. So, what do they have the actual name of the PDF? Yeah, because they didn't even, because as if it's literally just, it's tagged as a PDF logo, but it's an EXE. Yeah. Yeah, it's an EXE file format. They didn't even bother to pack the PDF with the EXE payload. And that's distinctive between, again, low-level senior and like your mid-tier to high-level performers, like your principals.
The thing I found about trying to do a payload by PDF is you gotta know what version of their PDF reader they're using, and you have to have an exploit for it.
That's easy. That's easy to find. Yeah.
I mean, if you go on like their website, you can look at the metadata, yeah. But I mean,
not even. You can pull a file down from the website. It'll tell you
metadata from a file on their website. Yeah.
Yeah, or you could just send them a request for information booklet, and then they're going to email you one that was recently compiled. Like, for instance, if it's an embassy, it's like, hey, can you send me your latest embassy docket information, such as visitation information, etc. That's your latest up to date. I'm looking at coming and take a tour. And then they're more than happy to send it to you, and they're going to send you the most up-to-date one, and that's going to have all your versioning information on it. You don't even have to deal with the website. You can email them directly and ask for that.
Then you just be a lazy ass and use set and let Dave handle the rest. Command and control over Facebook. Why? But
yeah, that's not something somebody would do. I mean, it's a good one, but Facebook is actively monitored for C2 activity by most of your more well-established security companies. Again, like your FireEyes, your Blue Coats, your Checkpoints. They're all looking for that. Mm-hmm. And so I don't see why you would look you would not look for Facebook as a C2. I mean,
it's just unusual, which I think it's interesting. Also, we've got Intel's Habana Labs was hacked by the Pay2Key ransomware group and had some data stolen. It's always fun when Intel has something hacked because, Intel. Yeah. So this is an AI processor developer. So they make like AI chips, I guess. They suffered a cyber attack. Their data was stolen by the threat actors. Intel purchased this company about a year ago for $2 billion. So maybe they got $1 billion to pay for ransomware. The Pay2Key ransomware operation leaked data allegedly stolen from them, including Windows domain account information, DNS zones, and a file listing. I guess that's proof that they got in, but it's not extremely valuable stuff if you're on the outside. I mean, it's pretty easy to change your passwords, but you know what computers are on the network. That's cool. So they gave them 72 hours to pay them, or they're just going to keep leaking data. And I imagine they got a lot more than what they've already leaked. So they're also responsible for some recent Israeli cyber attacks. Same group.
Yeah, this sounds like Iranians, to be honest. Either that or the Saudis.
Yeah. We've got Mount Locker ransomware getting slimmer, is now encrypting fewer files. Hey, why encrypt all the things if you only have to encrypt the important things, right? So they're now encrypting your tax documents, your a much smaller list. It's going to exclude things like executables, DLLs, sys files, MSIF files, INF files, batch files, commands, PowerShell stuff, VBS, links, all the stuff you...
That would brick your box if you did this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I imagine their older version probably did brick some boxes by encrypting that crap as well. It's like nobody can pay your shit if they can't turn the box on to get your code. About 70% of the code in this was also in their previous version, as well as an insecure Windows API function, get ticket count, that was used by the malware to generate an encryption key. BlackBerry, which are still in business, apparently, says that the use of the get tick count API offers a slim possibility to find the encryption keys through brute forcing. Yeah. So this is their attack chain here. And again, they're targeting idiots who leave 3389 open to the internet, which is far too many people. You go on Shodan, just look for 3389. You're gonna find about 80% Windows boxes and like 20% Linux boxes that are running that bullshit. What's it called? Well, yeah, but it's essentially it's making your Linux box accessible from your Windows box.
Yeah, so they can jump across networks.
type stuff.
Yeah, or they can log into the Linux box and then use RDP to access Windows systems.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of that crap. They're also, of course, using Cobalt Strike, so that would make them a low to medium range attacker, according to Logan. They're doing some exfiltration via FTP. FTP, really? You don't have a better way.
I'm telling you, you can tell just by looking at these things how experienced these people are. I would have tossed it over HTTPS or DNS, or NTP.
Deployment of a Cobalt Strike SMB beacon. So that would be like a PS exec to all the boxes, right?
Yeah, so it's effectively this giant flare in the sky that says, it just screams, I've hacked your box.
Exactly. Next, we've got some insider threat shit. An ex-Cisco employee has been convicted for deleting 16,000 WebEx accounts.
Ooh.
Yeah, this was deleting them. Sudhish Kasaba Ramesh.
It sounds like he went rogue and got pissed off and just started destroying him like customers' accounts.
He admitted that he broke into their cloud infrastructure in 2018, hosted on AWS, about 4 months after he had resigned from the company, and then proceeded to delete 456 virtual machines that hosted the WebEx Teams application, as well as many, many user accounts of people who subscribe to the service. So I guess that's an FU to your former employer.
Yep. And it also shows that they failed to change the accesses to the systems that he had access to. So they're not cycling. They don't have a password change policy enforced when employees are departed from the company. Yeah,
we see that a lot. Companies just don't want to change passwords. Like they give out, like, I've seen companies share one domain admin account across everybody rather than having multiple accounts or having like a low privilege account and a domain admin account. One domain admin, and it's like the username is like the name of the company and the password is like the address. It's
Yeah.
like, come on.
There are so many softwares out there, just as a quick piece there, that you can buy or even use free of charge through open source that will issue you a temporary admin credential upon request through a ticket. And a lot of them can be fully automated to where it's like you
Like
put in
lapse.
for a credential.
Lapse.
Yeah, and then it elapses after like 4 hours or whatever. So it gives you enough time to do what you need to do, and then it de-escalates your admin credentials so that you don't have one permanently floating out in oblivion.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft makes the local admin password solution just for that reason. It's like, don't use the same local admin account on all your boxes. It's going to randomly generate the password and hold on to them for you via GPO, and when you need it, you can request it and like that. Yep. So next we got PG Miner, innovative Monero mining botnet surprises researchers. So PG Miner is one of the many, many, many botnets out there. And some people over at Palo Alto's Unit 42 have dubbed this PG Miner, and it is going after SQL servers as well as not like MySQL, but PostgreSQL. SQL. I don't know how exactly you're supposed
to.
Postgres. I always say it wrong. I say everything wrong because I learned shit by reading, and nobody tells you you're thinking it wrong, So it exploits CVE 2019-9193. It is an RCE vulnerability that's been out since September 9th of 2013. That can't be right. Well, apparently it is. That can't be right because it's 2019. Whatever.
No, it sounds like the feature is from 2013.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
yeah,
but the CVE was linked to that feature,
correct.
And they just haven't gotten around to patching it. In all fairness, though, and I know a lot about Postgres because it's my favorite database of choice. Part of the issue with Postgres is Postgres actively competes against all the other mainstream databases. And so a lot of their efforts, in all fairness, does go to performance and quality of service as well as performance by capability match. And so a lot of the features that you would get from paid service databases like Oracle and MySQL, for instance, MS SQL, you can get from Postgres or something relative to it. And so I can totally understand how an open source project, which I think was recently purchased, would have issues with security.
Yeah. So the attack scans port 5432 used by Postgres SQL query language. The malware randomly picks a public network range and then looks for it and then tries to spread. So it's also going to try to brute force popular passwords when it finds an open one using like 112233 or common passwords. Let's do like a spray attack. Once it gets in, it'll clear the Abroxu table if it exists, creating a new one with a text column. Then it saves its malicious payload to that, executes the payload on the server, and then clears the table. Yep. And it's going to then use curl to carry out tasks. They're a pretty detailed write-up. No, not super detailed, but detailed enough. If you're interested in that, go look at it. Spotify hacked again. What is this, 3 times in the past 2 years? So if you have a Spotify account, you got it in your mail if you're in California. The rest of the U.S., they don't care to notify you because they don't have to by law. But they changed your password. Yeah, so you have to try and log in and then do a password reset and then create a new password with the link type deal, essentially, because they got pwned again. On Thursday, November 12th, Spotify discovered a vulnerability in a system that inadvertently exposed your Spotify account registration information, display name, password, gender, date of birth, and certain business partners. We estimate that this vulnerability has existed since April 9th of 2020. We disclosed it on November 12th. All right. So, yeah, Spotify, man. Fucking Spotify. Every time.
So I just want to make a quick correction to what I just said a second ago. Postgres itself wasn't purchased. It was OpenSCG and Citus is what was bought. And so they're effectively integrators / augmenters and not the actual project itself. I misspoke there. I apologize.
It's all good. Appreciate you correcting it. Next, we're going to go into our IT-related articles. I thought this was pretty interesting. So, apparently, they have been paid for a while in the factory that makes your iPhones, and they decided, screw that, we're just going to destroy the factory. Workers, they were protesting at an iPhone manufacturing plant in India. You know, it's not everything's made in China. You know, sometimes we make things in India too. They have caused up to $7 million in damages, according to Reuters. Workers at the plant, which is owned by Taiwanese-based company Wesson, says they haven't been paid what they were promised and are demanding better working conditions. They, of course, chaos. No phones getting made today there. Yeah.
At least you could say it was streamed high def.
Yeah. So they also set fire to vehicles in the parking garage. They are one of Apple's top suppliers, and Apple says it's investigating the company to see if they violated Apple's supplier guidelines. I would imagine not paying your employees so long that they start ripping the factory apart would probably constitute violating Apple's supplier guidelines. But you never know. They are, of course, the largest second marketplace in the world, India, after China, to make crap like this. They are extremely competitive, price conscious. Yep. No! Control-Shift-T. Come back! Control-Shift-T. No, it's gone forever. Okay.
There he goes, wiping out the sand.
Don't joke about that because it's happened. All right. Okay. Back to where we were. So we got this. We got the Docker Hub images. We got Firefox. We don't have this yet. So Firefox has decided to patch a mystery bug that also impacted Google Chrome. This bug was in the Firefox 84 web browser, and they fixed several security flaws, delivering performance gains and Apple processor support. By Apple processor support, we're talking about those shitty new ARM processors that they're charging people crap tons of money for. So 6 high-severity flaws were fixed, in addition to a critical bug tracked as CVE 2020-16042 that was highlighted earlier this month in Google Chrome's browser security update, where it was considered high severity. This particular bug is still not fully described by either browser maker and only listed as a memory bug. Memory bug. What could possibly go wrong with a memory bug? Okay. So it has to do with big int and JavaScript is what we know. It is an uninitialized use bug impacting the V8 JavaScript engine.
Is this related to Keystone by chance?
Unsure. Possible, though. I don't think it mentions it, though. Nope, does not. So, yeah. It's also, they're saying WebAssembly is the culprit behind this. Yeah. Not much more is known, but they patched it, whatever was wrong with it. Always good when they patch it. Now we got.
It looks like it might be related to Keystone. I'll keep digging into it.
Go for it. Next, we've got Office 365 credentials under attack by fax alert emails. So your users are always going to click on the weird crap that they get sent. So now attackers are sending them these fake fax emails saying that they've got a fax message. They got to click here to view it, and then it of course pops open their Office 365 portal, but it's not their real Office 365 portal. It's the one the attackers set up, and then people put their password, username, and password in there. This is pretty dumb. Like, one says it's from a legitimate eFax brand, right? And it'll say daily delivery and a number, and then it'll say you have a new fax, and it includes a small picture that's supposed to be a sample image of the fax that's not really readable. And it tells them click the attachment to view, and then they click the attachment here, which looks like, oh, this is of course a legitimate thing, and I'm going to click view documents because I want to see this fax, right? And up pops the portal, and there go your creds, and now the attacker's got access to your shit. So dumb users.
I mean, how dare users open emails? It's not like that's the entire purpose of what emails are for.
Blame the user. Never blame anybody else. That's what we do.
Yes.
Of course, there is user training that could help users to identify this kind of stuff. And there are companies that do that as their main job function. Like the one Kevin works at. Yeah, that's what they do. They fish people all day long.
Problem with that stuff is generally it's against a lot of industry norms to use fear tactics, and the scummy people will use fear tactics. So the training only can go so far.
True. The fear tactics tend to work pretty well. A majority of users, like especially things like if say you're working from home, right? And you're really enjoying working from home. You get an email, it looks like it comes from your company's HR department, and it's telling you, if you want to continue to work from home, you need to immediately sign these documents, otherwise report to the office first thing tomorrow. They click a button, and then it looks like an HR portal, so they put in their creds for the company, and then it actually brings them to a thing that's like work from home agreement, and they read it, and they click, I read this, and then they close it, and they think they're done. But that was not sent by the company's HR person, and now some malicious person has their credentials. That's how it works. You know, it's if done well, the person doesn't know they were phished at all. We've got some meta overview articles. I put these in this category because these are like things that are not really actual news per se, but they're things you should kind of be aware of. It's like an overarching category type thing. So ransomware and IP theft, top COVID-19 healthcare security scares. All right, this article goes through a whole bunch here, and it's got a little interview in it, which if you are interested in reading it, I recommend. We're not going to go too much into it, though, because I don't feel like reading all that crap. But it's good if you want to learn about that. So this is a pretty cool pairing of two different frameworks here, one for offense and one for defense, where we are going to be conjoining the MITRE framework along with the other one, the attack framework, ATT ampersand CK. So essentially, they're going to have like a one-to-one mapping between the two frameworks, the one being offensive and the other one being defensive. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, look, everyone has a need to categorize things so they can understand them better, and these frameworks can help people understand the different kinds of attacks that people perform and are going to see as a defender. So could be a cool project. Keep an eye on it. In no news to anybody, we've got billions, millions, lots of IoT crap out there, and a lot of it's not patched and is letting people have access to a lot of networks. Urgent 11 is a collection of 11 different bugs that can affect any connected device, leveraging Wind River's VxWorks. That includes an IPNet stack, a VxWorks real-time operating system. These are things like PLCs, right? So programmable logic controllers, they're used everywhere, especially in industrial things. Also, Rockwell automation stuff. We got a lot of IoT crap, things that might control like a motor, a valve, a pump, things that are often exposed to the internet for no good reason because the guy who monitors it is now working from home and they don't know how to set up a VPN or any other reason you can think of. We saw this a couple of weeks ago, a whole bunch of irrigation systems in Israel. And Israel has a lot of enemies. They were just open on the internet, and you could go and screw with them via a web interface. Like, you could just cause chaos.
Reminds me of something I saw a few years back. being linked from Shodan, this linked a what looked like a no VPN session. No VNC session, which essentially you browse to this website on a specific port, and there is part of Francis Power Grid of on and off, clickable on and off buttons, no password.
I remember one. It was called VNC Roulette. I wonder if that's still around.
I've never heard of that one.
So this was a website you could go to, and it would literally just have a bunch of like VNC servers exposed, and you could see them. It's obviously not around anymore. But if you wanted to, you could then just copy that information into your own VNC. It was kind of like those stupid chat roulette type things, right? But for VNC. And it was just somebody made a list of all the VNC servers, and then they put together a web interface, and every time you reloaded the page, it would connect you to a different one. So, yeah, that was a thing for a while. That's not around anymore. Probably bet for the best. Yeah. So next we've got millions of, already covered that. It's kind of the same article, but from a different place. They're not going to cover it again. The FBI and CISA, who were both hacked recently, thanks to SolarWinds, are telling us that a lot of K-12 groups are being hacked, schools, which is not surprising. And we've seen a lot of schools lately get pwned, get ransomware, and then pay it because they don't have any backups. And otherwise, they're going to lose like all the kids' records. Which, if I were still in high school, I would just pwn my high school and upload some ransomware and delete everybody's grades. That would be fun. But I'm not, and of course I'm ethical now, so that wouldn't be a thing. They're just using commodity malware at this point. Like, you can go on a dark net and buy access to Zloader, Zeus, Schlayer, any of these programs. Essentially, you don't have to be a genius. You can essentially pull down the equivalent of TeamViewer in malicious network software and pwn everything and get away with it. Make it look like it's somebody else. It's happening. Schools are getting hacked a lot, especially since they went remote. It's more of a target now. A lot of schools don't know how to do remote properly, so you see them like opening RDP up and stupid shit like that. We've got security issues in point-of-sale terminals, always. So these are a very interesting target for an attacker, because if you can get the terminal here before it goes over the network and encrypts the data, you can skim a bunch of credit cards. So we've got POS terminals from 3 different vendors that are all under attack recently. They are, of course, usually using default passwords because they're usually set up by idiots who don't have any idea about what they're doing. Yet they still pass their PCI compliance. And a new analysis this week shows these POS terminal vulnerabilities could enable an attacker to send arbitrary packets, clone cards, clone terminals, and install persistent malware. POS terminals are devices that read payment cards like credit cards and debit cards. The affected terminals are POS terminals. So these are like in use by one person at a time type things. You know, like when you go to 7-Eleven and you buy something and you stick your card in there. Well, those kind of things. These are not necessarily the ones that the cashier interacts with, but these are like these stupid things. Bunch of security issues. Google search can easily reveal a lot of these systems are exposed to the internet and have default credentials. That's just stupid. So if an attacker gains access to them, they can alter transactions. They can attack the acquiring bank via a server-side vulnerability in terminal management system. They can invalidate the trust given between the POS and the processor. Lots of bad things. But because of the report that came out, I'm sure everyone's going to immediately go and patch all of these things, right? It won't be an issue anymore because of the report that came out. Reports fix everything. Now we've got the section that specifically deals with breaches, malware, worms, ransomware, extortion, and insider threats. Why are they all in this section? Because Frank was lazy and put them all there. He kept adding slashes when he found new things. Black Shadow hackers extort Israeli insurance company for $1 million. Adrian, I believe you put this in. Do you want to take it?
I don't believe I did.
Oh, it was actually in the show notes before I started editing the show notes, so I figured it was you.
No.
Is anybody who's here one of the people who put this in the show notes, or should I just take a stab at it?
Take a stab.
Stabbing in commence. This, right, Logan? This. All right. Black Shadow hackers extort Israeli insurance company for $1 million. Threat actors are extorting an Israeli insurance company by demanding $1 million in Bitcoin to stop leaking their data. They're calling themselves Black Shadow, and they tweeted that they hacked into the Israeli Sharbit insurance company and stole files. This is your typical, like, hey, we got your files. Look, here's an example. Also, I wonder if it would be really evil for one of these companies. You can be calling them out, right? One of these ransomware groups, right? You know, they have their leak sites and they'll like publish files from the companies they hacked. I think it'd be hilarious if they backdoored those PDFs before publishing them, and then people go to download them to see what got hacked, and then themselves get hacked. That would be epic.
That would actually be a great way to hack a lot of cybersecurity researchers.
It'd be great.
Wait, what would be?
Thanks for the idea.
You're welcome. You heard it here first.
No, I missed that. What would be a great way to hack a bunch of cybersecurity researchers?
So he's saying what you would do is you would take the PDFs, you would have the breach, you would announce the breach, which then naturally the cybersecurity researchers would go looking for the artifacts. They would find the artifacts, and then they would check the artifacts to validate them, and the artifacts are backdoored, so when you executed the artifacts, you would detonate a payload and would become infected. And so it's a tactic terrorists use. And so what it is you hit a target, and then when emergency responders go to respond, they're the actual targets, not the actual target itself. The target itself is just to trigger a process.
Taking out a guy in the street, and then they go to get him. They take out those guys going to get him.
Yeah. So you hit the emergency responders, who are the real targets.
What'd she say? Did she make us food? All right. Yep, so that's pretty much that. All right, moving on to the next one. Git Paste 12 is another worm that's going around. This one is interesting because it was initially on GitHub a while back, right? And then they took down the repo, and somebody cloned it locally, and they made some changes and uploaded it. And they don't think it's the same person who initially made the first one, but this worm now is leveraging some previously disclosed vulnerabilities, and also is installing, of course, a coin miner, because if you're going to pop a bunch of boxes, you might as well make some money off of it, right? This sample is a Unix binary. It's UPX packed. It's written in Go, compiled for x86 systems. And it essentially is packing about 31 different vulnerabilities to try out on stuff when it is executed and then spread. It's also got a built-in, vulnerability for vBulletin, the one that's going around for Tenda routers. So it's going to try and pop everything that it can and then spread. It's wormable. So also interesting that its code is available to anybody who wants to see it. So
you're looking for a high school kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally just took a bunch of EKs and just tossed everything to Getty. They made a potluck, is what this is. Yeah, I would check hack forums. You'll probably find them bragging about it on hack forums. Yeah.
At least go to raid forums. I mean, at least you gotta pay to see what they're bragging.
Nah, they won't even pay. Yeah, you're talking about somebody probably 15 to maybe 20, 22, maybe 25 tops.
Yep. Now we're going to talk about system BC malware with RAT and a Tor proxy built in. So cyber criminals are increasingly outsourcing everything. And we got people with affiliates using commodity malware and attack tools So, in a report published by Sophos today and shared with the Hacker News, recent deployments of Ryuk and eGregor are now using the System BC backdoors to laterally move throughout the network and fetch additional payloads for further execution. System BC is part of a recent ransomware toolkit. It essentially is a backdoor that can be used in combination with other scripts and malware to perform discovery, exfiltration, lateral movement. Think of it as a script kiddies Metasploit framework, but not as good. So these System BC capabilities were originally intended for mass exploitation, but have now been folded into a toolkit for targeted attacks, including ransomware. So it was found by Proofpoint about a year ago. It's a proxy malware. It leverages a SOX 5 a SOX 5 proxy, and to do its command and control, and it's going to route your shit over Tor first. It has been used by the Danabot banking Trojan. It's in more and more commodity malware, and it's being incorporated, which is good because as a defender, you're going to see a bunch of Tor traffic going out, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?" Right? So at least it gives itself away, right? So yeah, it's got a bunch of tools. It's essentially something the people who are doing ransomware as a service are now incorporating into their toolkits. Microsoft has exposed Androzek malware. And this malware would hijack Chrome, Edge, and Firefox. Obviously, did not have the time for Internet Explorer. This malware has been active since May. It recently in August. It had about 30,000 browsers. It says it controlled more than 30,000 browsers each day. I don't know if that means 30,000 more or 30,000 in total. It's ambiguously worded, so I'm just going to ambiguously report it. But in a report, the Microsoft 365 Defender research team believes the number of infected users is much, much higher. They have observed hundreds of thousands of infections across the globe. They've made a little heat map here. And they talk about how it spreads by classic drive-by download stuff. You go to a website, you get a pop-up, your Flash player's out of date. You're like, oh, I want to see this content. You click OK, it downloads an executable. You run it, you're an idiot. Now you're infected. Like that. Speaking of Flash, it's gone almost. Get to that later. So it will disable browser updates. That's why you may be performing a security scan and you see that your browser is 10 versions behind. It'll disable integrity checks, safe browsing. It will disable, essentially make your shit much less secure and then inject ads everywhere. It is a massive operation and it is expected to grow further. It is essentially the grandson of all those crappy browser-based BHO malwares we saw in the past, and just gonna keep the thing up, you know. We already talked about the malicious Ruby gems, so we can skip that. And Missouri City we talked about already as well. We talked about this in a different article, but this one's got a prettier thumbnail. What happened? Did I just repeat everything in multiple sections? I suck.
Looks like it. You copy pasted. You're busted, buddy.
Too much copy pasta, Frank. Oh no, mom spaghetti. All right. Pornhub got 10 million videos eradicated, and the article apparently also eradicated. Is that a bad copy pasta? All right, there we go. So they deleted all the accounts of people who are not verified. That would be like Twitter only allowing blue check marks. Anybody who didn't have verification status and uploaded videos had their videos removed. So Pornhub, which have 10 million videos, now has 2.9 million videos.
Just an FYI for listening, if Section 230 of CDA gets repealed, you can expect this kind of overreaction across all of social media. Like, getting rid of Section 230 is not punishing the liberals; it's punishing everyone.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the ones that are the biggest, how do you put it this way, the ones that have violated the spirit of it the most have enough money to actually be able to compensate with smaller
like
websites.
Gab, Parler, 4chan, probably Reddit, and a bunch of other forums will completely be gone. There is no chance it will survive. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they're going to have massive waves of censorship.
I personally can't wait.
They'll survive. It'll just be a much shittier platform.
Yeah, to be honest, I can't wait. I can't wait.
And social media. I mean, it's like if the social media company is responsible for everything their users post.
Yeah. Well, they're not because of 230, but because of the fact that they're violating 230 by policing when they're not supposed to.
That's not how you violate 230. That's just something that.
Well, it's a publisher. It is.
No, publisher is not a word in the law. It's something some various politicians want to be in the law, but that's not actually part of Section 230.
Yeah, well, in essence, the translation of 230 in layman's terms is effectively the equivalency of public square. And again, if you impede someone's freedom of speech or expression, you're effectively acting as a publisher.
No,
it's the easiest way to describe it.
There's an explicit clause in the law which states, Pim, what you're allowed to moderate. You're not required to, but you're allowed to. It explicitly says that.
Yeah, with extreme limitations.
Not
and that's the thing.
Not even the tiniest limitations are.
Here, I'll pull it up. Well, let's check it. Let's check it. I'm open-minded. We'll pull it up. That's the great thing about online law is that you can just literally read it.
Yes.
There you go. Share your screen, Logan. Hide your porn first.
Yeah. Hide my porn? No. It's been deleted anyways. We're fine.
I mean, his porn's on Pornhub. And that's all gone now.
It's all gone. That's why you should get a porn torrent tracker account and then download it all locally, man.
Yeah. All right. So we can all agree the EFF is neutral territory, right? All right.
Well, they are pro Section 230. They are pro Section 230.
All right. So they're pro Section 230. So this is from the EFF.org site.
Okay.
CDA 230.
Okay.
No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as a publisher or speaker of information provided by another information content provider. That hosts are protected against a range of laws that might otherwise be used to hold them legally responsible for what others say and do. Yeah. Basically, any online service that publishes third-party content, though there are exploitations for certain criminal and intellectual property-based claims, creates a broad protection that allows innovation and free speech to flourish. Now, let's keep reading. Countless reviews, hosts, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, legal shield to bloggers who act as intermediaries by hosting comments, not liable for the comments left by readers. Are unique to the U.S. Yeah, of course. They don't have similar statutes because they don't actually support freedom of speech.
Yeah, so far this sounds just like the safe harbor statutes.
Yeah. In essence, is what it's for. But from my understanding of the law, which I've got to pull up the actual law itself, they gave us a citation so we can do that.
Okay.
That's one of the great things about the EFF is they do like their documentation. Yeah, we did some great work with the EFF over in Georgia here with SB 315 service. All right, so here's the law itself. I'll provide this. This is from Cornell. We can all agree, Cornell, neutral territory.
Right. I can agree that I can acknowledge the law is probably just transcribed there.
Yeah. Disincentives for blocking and filtering technologies. Provide vigorous enforcement of federal laws to deter obscenity, stalking, and harassment by means of computer. Protection for Good Samaritan. Actually, I didn't know that. Shall be treated as a publisher or speaker of any information provided by another content provider. Civil liability to restrict content to be obscene, lewd. I don't even know how to say this word. What the hell?
That's why you should share your screen. So
Lascivious.
Lascivious, yeah. Like, all right, excessively violent, harassing, or otherwise objectionable, whether or not such material is constitutionally protected. So that's a civil liability. No effects on criminal law, intellectual property. Nothing in this section shall be limit. Okay, so criminal.
Like I said.
Hang on, I'm trying to read this whole thing. This is some serious legalese. Like, this is borderline needing an attorney.
I understand that. It's like I have to remember. Like I've followed the law for a while. The evolution of it. I've listened to Ron Wyden's like a podcast. He was one of the
Ron
two
is
authors of Section
really
230.
good. Yeah, Ron is really good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so as someone who reads the law on a regular basis, because I kind of have to for my second job, basically this law is the safe harbor statute, which says that as long as you take reasonable precautions to prohibit or not actively encourage illegal content, you have immunity from civil liability.
Yeah, as long as you're providing the platform and you're not providing content. And
Correct.
so that's the argument that's made is once you start modifying content to include what is provided beyond the scopes of legal mandates, which is provided in sections.
Which could mean that they could delete anything they want.
Yeah.
They may not
You
necessarily
can't
get
filter.
that comment.
Yeah, you can't filter anything that you want. And that's where they're
Well,
arguing about.
No, you can moderate.
moderation.
You can moderate that. That's absolutely fine, because it's their platform. They can moderate whatever they want. Now, if they only allow certain content, then there could be a case made for that, but not likely.
I don't know, man.
It's like if a random user was to post child porn on Twitter, Twitter's informed of this and they remove it. Twitter is not liable for the child porn.
Yeah, that's under Good Samaritan section.
Now, if Jack posts child porn on Twitter, that's a different matter. He is liable. If Twitter does not remove child porn once within a relatively short period of time, once informed, then Twitter becomes liable.
And that's in all fairness, they did cover that pretty extensively on a write-up about and related to Pornhub, which is where this mess started from. Was from revenge porn and child-related content. And that was what caused a major mess. And most of that content was uploaded by unregistered users. And that's why they targeted, from what I understand, the unregistered users.
Most of all content are from unregistered users. Like almost all content is from it's
well, it's better than getting raided by the FBI. So
on
Yeah.
Or the Pornhub thing or something else?
The Pornhub thing specifically.
Okay, well, Pornhub's case was that most of the users were not verified, and their verification system has to do with basically you provide proof that you are who you say you are in a facial picture with your username or something like that, and basically any content that was not uploaded by a trusted partner or verified account was marked for review. Because of a few limited cases, which they had a blog post that kind of said, "Hey, that was a problem here." They actually posted that there was like 83 million reports on Facebook of child abuse. They had 118 over the same 3-year period.
So both of those figures are misleading. Mainly because Facebook actively monitors and reports for child porn.
No, they don't. That's a load of shit. I have seen shit stay on there for weeks and months.
Don't get me wrong. They make large mistakes.
Checking on the shit.
But it's very well documented. They have taken voluntary steps to submit obscene amounts of child porn they've discovered in their platform to the authorities on a regular basis.
I'm going to call it K, but they put out the point it's unverified users, not unregistered, because I'm assuming you have to register to upload something.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't do it as an anonymous account.
Whereas Pornhub is kind of infamous for not really. Pornhub's infamous for its hands-off approach.
Yeah,
here's why they don't get into more trouble with copyright violation.
So it's really we don't actually know the true figures for how much child porn is on Pornhub. We really
but they have been very famous in the past for actually, if someone reports something as being illegal or
they remove it.
They will snap to and remove it and ban people and
absolutely. Pirated stuff out there. Most of it, I dare say, is pirated.
and they do, and when people submit DMCA requests, they get taken down too. So they are very snappy with that kind of shit.
The difference is proactive
industry apparently.
The problem is it's hard to actively monitor that because there's so much, and they've had videos where I was actually reading some of the comments that people saying about how it's killing Pornhub, and it's gonna kill Pornhub. That if the video looked like questionable, like if it was like potentially like quote rape or quote revenge porn, then it gets removed and flagged. There was one person said like they actually had like a cum shot on their face because while they were sleeping, of course they knew it was happening. It was a quote sleep video, and it was taken down because it looked like they weren't consenting. So it was like, what the fuck?
All right, sorry it broke the link there, but that's a really good write-up that I found just now. In regards to going through all the court cases involved, in regards to 230 and the several acts prior to, including an ACLU case, Reno v. ACLU 97.
Well, okay, Corey, not really. It depends. If they were made aware of the drug sales, didn't do it, then yes. But
they would be liable for the drug sale stuff.
If they were alerted to it. If they were not alerted to it, then no, they're not liable because they've had no effort. They've actually had no
unless there was evidence that came out that shows that they were aware of it,
right,
and from some other way.
And that's where discovery comes into play. That shows that you actually built the noose that they're going to hang you with.
Alrighty, so share the show notes again. Adrian,
I got it.
All right. Next, we've got local and world news, celebrity gossip, and SJW stuff. Why did I name this section this? Because again, I'm lazy. First thing we've got is.
Oh, by the way, we never did cover Free Ross, did we?
Oh, we didn't cover Free Ross. Let's cover Free Ross again. This is Ross Albright. Ross started the Silk Road. Ross is in jail. Ross shouldn't be in jail.
It was something like 2 lifetimes and plus.
Hang on. He shouldn't be in jail?
No jail for Ross.
The only things that got him on that I have a problem with is, and they didn't even have him on this, is supposedly there was some contract killings that were.
He contracted what he thought was an assassin, but it was actually an undercover cop.
But now they don't even know.
It wasn't an undercover cop. It was another. It was the same dude who was scamming him.
Okay. It was the guy who was being handled.
3 different guys. One guy using 3 handles, playing him, eventually working him up, telling him that one guy had leaked his data of all his users, like the addresses of all the people who bought drugs, and then another user egging him on, and then a third guy like, hey, I'm a hitman, who was originally going to be like somebody he was going to have as somebody who sold drugs on his thing for like some biker gang or some shit. It was all the same dude. He was just fucking with him. And
I thought it was the feds.
Also, though, here's the deal. We also don't know if it was actually Ross Ulbricht who was using that particular account for dreaded private robbers at the time. Because
there was, because they actually found a journal he kept, like a physical journal he kept that actually had his notes in it. So that was kind of what tied it to him.
And also,
they didn't end up charging him. They didn't end up charging him for murder for hire, though.
Yeah. So I've got to ask, and my brain's racking on this one. So why doesn't he deserve to be in jail? I've got to hear this. I'm open-minded, but I've got to hear this.
He got a shit ton more time than anybody else involved in that. I mean, basically, what it was like 2 life sentences plus 40 years, as I recall.
Dear God.
And the only thing they got on him that I would have a problem with, that they didn't even charge him with because they didn't have enough evidence, was the possible murder for hire. We actually have episode 150 of this cast. We actually had Ross's mom on to talk about the issue.
Yeah.
And then there was Darknet Diaries Silk Road episode, which Operation Bayonet, which you can, I think this was it.
But there's some talk about Trump pardoning him. No idea if that's going to happen. The place I saw it reported was the Daily Beast, which has a tendency to be somewhat left-wing. Well, more than somewhat. But the funny thing was the Twitter comment.
Wait, Trump's going to pardon him?
No. There's talk of it. He might not. We don't know. It's just come up in a news
article. The funny thing is, Daily Beast has such far-left followers. It doesn't matter if they might agree with the case in principle. They would say in all sorts of crazy shit like, well, Trump probably wants to get money from him. I don't think the guy has any money anymore. Or
That
No,
is-
the FBI confiscated all of his money. In fact, one of the cops who confiscated it actually tried sending the money to themselves and got caught.
or they say
This
something
is
stupid like,
insane. Wait, hang on. Give me
no,
a
let me say one
second
other
here.
thing. Or the Daily Beast followers would say shit like, well, he's only excusing him because he's white. You realize that the First Step Act excused a lot of nonviolent black offenders also. So it's not because the guy is white. It's because he seemed to have gotten way more of a sentence than he should have.
Hang on. All right. So from what I know of the Silk Road, from my run-ins with places that may or may not be incredibly similar to Silk Road, maybe even named close to Silk Road, they had everything from child porn to narcotics to sex trafficked people to like.
My Sunday did not have child porn.
Yeah.
They had all kinds of any content you wanted could or could not potentially be bought on that site, allegedly.
Right. So
This guy was like the Baron of blackness in the universe.
So he started this site apparently because of his interest in economic theory. There was like this whole thing about how he believed in free markets and wanted to see how it would work.
Yeah, I think the Mises School was his big thing.
Yeah.
Oh, Corey Sanchez says the cops that tried to steal from him got released, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that.
The feds, when they confiscated his Bitcoin, they didn't directly do it. Somebody apparently hacked his wallet, and then the feds figured out who that was, and then they gave him a pass for turning over the Bitcoin to them.
Oh, Jason, some of the information in my my talk from many years ago may or may not be accurate. But yeah, I did a talk on how various people got busted on Tor, and there's some debate about whether or not they had a child porn on the site. So I don't honestly know. I didn't.
Yeah, that was private sales.
I've been on the site before, but
Yeah.
just to see what was on there, and I don't remember seeing that. But if it's private sales, then I wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, everything was for sale on Silk Road.
I never heard of child porn being on there. You would think if that was the case, you'd think that would be a much bigger. That would have been a much bigger topic.
It was private sales. There's a lot of stuff that was for sale there that was private sales.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just like every other black market. There's the primary items that are for sale, and then there's the stuff that you have to know the right people to go to, and then they have to vet you, and then once they vet you, they'll sell to you. It's just like the stuff that you can buy on hack forums, for instance. There's the generic shit that every script kiddie and their mom would expect to find there, and then there's a lot of other stuff that you would not expect to find there that's also for sale. But you have to know who to talk to, and it's a lot more advanced than you would think.
I know. I remember seeing a bit of a expose of people trying to find out where some of these Tor sites are hosted. Checked in Shodan, the HTTP responses, and you just see, because of shitty configuration, you saw the public IP of all these websites. You browse to it, and they return some information from the URL of the Tor node.
Apparently, it was Mises, according to Jason. Okay. All right, we can continue on. I just wanted to throw that out there because it's something that came up. Then again, they talk about pardoning all sorts of people who knows what the hell's going to happen.
I just imagine the amount of salt that would happen if fucking Ross and Snowden got pardoned. Holy
Snowden's
shit!
gonna die in jail. He is never getting out.
But just imagine the salt. Oh my fucking
Snowden's
God.
not in jail though.
Snowden's in jail.
No, he's in. Well, if you consider Russia jail, which some people.
I mean,
would.
he's basically in exile.
It kind of sucks, but his hot stripper girlfriend came and married him. So
What's going on with Snowden? Hold on. Now I have to look into it. I know he got kicked out of the embassy. Where?
no, that was Assange who got kicked out of the embassy.
Oh,
Yeah, Assange did. Yeah, Assange is actually in custody right now.
Snowden is in Russia. Goddamn brain is mixing people up. Sorry. All right, never mind.
Snowden had an interview with John Stossel here recently.
Yeah,
I watched all the interviews.
like controversial leaking figures apparently. Next article, we've got a person in Alaska has become had a very allergic reaction after getting Pfizer's new COVID-19 vaccine. This is going to cause a shitstorm with the anti-vaxxers because they're going to use this as proof that they shouldn't have to get vaccinated, and a lot of people are probably going to not get vaccinated.
So it's kind of expected that there would be allergic reactions with this kind of stuff.
Well, there's other issues that have come up as well, not just anaphylactic. Anaphylactic shock was one of the least of the severe symptoms. They've had everything from heart failure to lung collapse to
I've not
Bell's
heard of
palsy.
any of that shit. I've not heard of any of
I
that.
can provide you the links because there's been at least 5 reported cases of Bell's palsy symptoms from people who have received the vaccine.
I
Current
would be
reports.
interested in that.
Current reports are showing that severe reactions are occurring depending on the age groups between 0.2 to 4.6% of all recipients.
What is the anaphylactic shock? That's not good.
Yeah, it's not good at all. Thankfully, though, for anaphylactic shock and stuff like that, when that happens, especially, you're typically getting these vaccines around medical licensed staff, and
Well,
so most of them have an EpiPen.
Having them distributed at universities and
Yeah, I would not recommend that. I would not recommend that at all.
so I can't imagine CVS if I went and got like a shot like this at CVS of them having people on hand who could deal with that if that happened.
Yeah. Well, surprisingly, places like CVS and Walgreens will typically employ a registered nurse or some other version of a nurse practitioner, and they'll have them on a contracting basis, sometimes full time, from what I've seen, to administer drugs. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it would be a nurse or some kind of RN.
Yeah. Next, we got Smith & Wesson suing New Jersey. Why? Because they're New Jersey, obviously. That's the only reason to sue them. So, Smith & Wesson makes guns. New Jersey is engaged in an unconstitutional phishing extradition to try to curtail gun rights by using a new tactic, false advertising claims. In a federal lawsuit filed in New Jersey on Tuesday, Smith & Wesson claims New Jersey Attorney General Gruber Grewal has tried everything in his power to stymie gun sales, and that he is now Liv, your old lady keeps yelling at you. Okay. So he is now sifting through decades of company advertisements and marketing materials in an extra illegal attempt to restrict the right to bear arms. In October, they filed administrative subpoenas seeking evidence of fraudulent advertising from the gun manufacturer. The subpoenas requested documentation relating to advertisements and claims firearms make the home safer. An untrained homeowner could use a Smith & Wesson firearm safely and effectively to defend his home, and whether the guns enhance one's lifestyle. The subpoena presents no legitimate inquiry into any purported fraud, and instead targets opinions and other protected statements that allegedly made by Smith & Wesson. It seeks a court order enjoining the subpoenas and declaring them unconstitutional. Citing 248 million results of Google searches, "Do guns make you safer?" as proof that many Americans do believe that guns make them safer, Smith & Wesson says New Jersey's false advertising subpoenas should be a dead-end legal theory. Smith & Wesson also says the subpoenas are politically motivated, noting that they partnered with several anti-Second Amendment groups like Do Not Stand Idly By to seek new methods to restrict gun ownership. The complaint notes in a conference in New York University earlier this month that participants allegedly observed how consumer protection laws and false advertising laws were fertile ground for new anti-gun initiatives. The complaint also says New Jersey reportedly name and shame policy, in which the Attorney General has tried to connect Smith & Wesson with gun crimes, is an extra legal attempt to branch the company as a bad actor. Smith & Wesson, that would be a good name. Smith & Wesson is a good corporate citizen that is a leader on gun safety initiatives in the industry, while the Attorney General seeks to do his actions is impermissible as long as the guarantees of free speech and the right to bear arms remain in the Constitution. A lot of people want to take that out of the Constitution. So, Smith & Wesson firearms have been used in several high-profile mass shootings over the last decade, including the 2018 shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, where a 19-year-old killed 17 students and faculty with a mass shooting in Aurora, Colorado movie theater in 2012 during The Dark Knight Rises that killed 12 people. In 2018, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy announced that the gun manufacturers would be listed in monthly reports showing the source for every gun crime recovered by the state police. Essentially, when you get down to it, Smith & Wesson is well known for their pistols and handguns that stem back to the 1800s. And they've clashed with politicians before. Apparently, when they were going up against President Clinton, they nearly got bankrupted due to a decline in sales due to acceptable gun control measures. Anyway, that's your article there. There's more to it. I didn't read it all, but
I think it's kind of funny that a gun maker is actually finally going on the offensive and countersuing, because there's been lots of cases in the past where the government will sue them, saying, "Oh, they're not doing enough for our safety," yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I tell people is this: I'm more than happy to pay $200 per. I'll pay it per month. Don't get me twisted. I'll pay it per month. The second you're willing to pay $10,000 a month for your freedom of speech and $50,000 a year for your right to vote, because I'm more than happy to spend the money as long as you're willing to pay for it as well.
Yep. Next, we've got some SJW bullshit. This is not it. This is not it at all. I clicked the wrong link. All right.
Now I'm trying to think about how many Smith & Wesson firearms I own. Not too many.
I don't own any, so I'm fine. They're good weapons.
I only own them, so I'm still fine also.
But yeah, I've Smith & Wesson. My father-in-law would have to pay one, but I've got other weapons from other vendors, mostly Glocks and stuff.
So we've got Gina Carano, who plays a mercenary on The Mandalorian, and she was also, I think, a wrestler at one point.
Well, she may have done that also, but she was in MMA.
That's kind of wrestling. It's Anyway, so she was an MMA fighter then. That's more badass. Given that. All right. So her political opinions on Twitter are somewhat right-leaning, and people don't like that. And now there was a whole campaign to cancel her and get her kicked off the show, but they already filmed the next part of the next season, and they were like, how do we can't get her off the show. It's a pain in the ass. So they were also going to give her own spin-off at one point. Looks like that's not happening now. And now Disney is asking her to apologize to everyone for her opinions.
I tried to explain to an SJW who was giving me shit on Twitter once about, he said something about me apologizing. I'm like, have you been paying attention for the last few years? That doesn't work. He said he has been reading stuff. I'm like, I think he's been reading my blog or whatever. I'm like, no, you're not really understanding, but you're kind of a fucking dumbass.
Once you apologize, it's over.
Oh, I posted something from Zuby that listed criteria that make women on general more attractive. And one of them was short, having long hair, and his wife has short hair, so he freaked out. Other things like stay in physical shape. But the same Mangina said that he was told when he was young to hide his emotions, conform to a certain way of dress, and have big muscles. And all that's actually good advice for men. Sorry, it's good advice.
Double standards are a big thing.
He called it toxic, though, because they always say toxic. I hate... When dudes start using the word toxic, I know I'm going to dislike them.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, and don't shoot me, but I've never actually seen The Mandalorian, and I'm not exactly motivated to,
If you like Star Wars, it's way better than...
I do. I do like Star Wars.
It's way better than the sequels.
Yeah. I still haven't seen it.
It's a shitload of fan service. I'll give it that. But it's enjoyable, and I really like Bill Burr's character recently.
Yeah. I'm just not impressed with a Baby Yoda because it's not actually Baby Yoda, and they keep saying it's not Baby Yoda. So I'm just not motivated to see it because they're telling me it's not Baby Yoda.
He's got a name now.
I don't even know what it is.
It starts with a G. I don't remember what it is though, but he's got his own name now that he only knows because he psychically communicated it to a Jedi woman. So yeah. Anyway, they want her to apologize.
I think it's Groku. Anyway, continue.
Right. So I saw this article. I thought this would be a good backstory for a supervillain. So a 2-year-old was abandoned at a Goodwill with a note and a bag of clothes. Don't people know, like, you could drop off your unwanted 2-year-old at, like, a hospital? Of course, the cops will come and you'll probably go to jail, but dropping someone off at a Goodwill, that's kind of like, what the hell? So a suspect is in custody after a 2-year-old boy was dropped off at a South Haven, Mississippi Goodwill store with nothing but a bag of clothes and a note. A bystander called the police on Monday to report a man wearing a black jogging pants and a black cowboy hat that had dropped off a young boy at a Goodwill and left. Parent of the year. The child was too young to give his name or the names of his parents. Surveillance footage captured images of the male and a female associated with the child and the vehicle they were driving when the child was abandoned. They did not disclose any further information about the charges or the suspect because it's an ongoing investigation. There are 3 different agencies working this case. Yep. So, of course, they called CPS, and they say the child will be in good hands. But, I mean, if that's not a supervillain origin story, I don't know what is right there.
Okay, yes. Just imagine if Lex Luthor said he was dropped off at a fucking Goodwill. Come on.
No, this is like the perfect story for like a Harvard graduate.
No, that's the perfect story for fucking Deadpool.
In other Disney news, they're rebooting Firefly. Yeah.
Oh.
So
don't you set my expectations high, you whore.
It's been so long. Can they get most of the cast back? I mean,
they're not. They're rebooting it. Completely different cast.
It's dead to me. It's just like with Charmed, and the reboot was just destructively bad. I didn't even watch.
I loved the original Charmed.
I couldn't get through episode 1
cringe
of the new one.
Charmed, the acting was so bad, but back when I was a kid, I loved it. But
like,
if they don't get at least Nathan Fillion back, I don't really care to watch this Firefly.
Yeah. It's not Firefly if they don't get the whole crew.
And they've already killed off, even if they did bring some of them back, they've already killed off 2 of the main characters in the movie.
Hang on, what? Don't you run stuff for me? I haven't seen that movie.
Okay, never mind. Wait, it's been out for like 10 years. You haven't seen Serenity?
Yeah,
no.
You don't get spoilers.
Please come on, don't spoil King Kong for me.
Do you know? Hey, do you know how reavers clean their spears? They run through the wash. Ah.
That's good.
Oh.
Last but not least, we're going to be ending with an article that makes me happy. Drinking red wine and eating cheese could reduce your cognitive decline. I don't know why this guy is here, and it won't turn off. Damn you! Where's my no script? It won't go away.
To find out that you worked for it.
Anyway, so in the UK, they did a study of about 2,000 people aged 46 to 77, and they had them complete a fluid intelligence test to see how well they're able to think on their feet over the course of 4 years from 2006 to 2010, and then they followed up with them again from 2012, 2013, and again 2015 and 2016. They took diet into account, measuring the kinds of food and alcoholic beverages. Essentially, the results of the study show drinking red wine and eating cheese could reduce cognitive decline. I like it. I'm not even going to read the study because...
Don't these kind of articles come out like every few years and sometimes they're kind of nebulously true?
So, yes.
I know you want to believe.
I want to believe. I want to just like go to bed, drink a thing of wine, and like eat a hunk of cheese and believe it's going to help.
I'm sure it's within moderation.
In some positive way. It's not just going to make me a fat fuck. It's going to make me smarter somehow.
It probably does if you're like we're talking about a glass and a piece of cheese. But, you know. If you're downing cat lady levels of boxed wine in the evening, that's not going to do good.
Boxed wine, screw that. I have a wine of the month club I subscribe to. All right.
Well, it's like the old, red wine helps your heart. Yeah, it does. Like if you drink a glass or two, a couple times a week. If you're chugging down a bottle every fucking night, no, you're an alcoholic. That's not helping your heart. That's hurting your liver.
Yeah, I'm trying to cut back on the booze, acid reflux and such. But yeah, moderation is an issue.
Yeah, my old man was an alcoholic, and the doctor actually told him, he's like, you need to stop drinking, but don't stop all at once. You need to slowly wean yourself down. And my dad did not listen to him, and he just stopped drinking for a month. And we went through like the withdrawal and everything, and then the fucker had a heart attack and died, because you really do need to listen to your doctor, and they tell you to level off and not just keep fucking drinking same amount, like make it less, and then. Detox is a serious thing. So, and now I've ended the cast on a horribly depressing note. Excellent. That'll leave him wanting more.
All right. Well, does anybody have anything else to say before we go off air and bullshit for a little bit more?
Free Ross.
Yeah,
Free Ross!
two things. So on November 3rd, 2020. Observers of the Bitcoin blockchain detected there were 2 transactions totaling 69,370 Bitcoin, worth about $1 billion, from an address associated with the Silk Road.
Individual X.
Yeah. Yeah, it was made by the U.S. government in a civil forfeiture action, so they did seize the Bitcoin from the Silk Road.
You see the whole point, the whole thing about the intermediary who they paid for their services, and then
the other piece was it's a 2-parter. I dropped the links for some snippets there for Silk Road raid for child porn, and then I also added a link to an executive order dropped on May of 2020, which I think is where the segregation between publisher and platform was more fully defined. In that executive order, but I don't know what became of that executive order, so I can't speak to it further.
Right, I'm gonna put that in the notes just to look at later.
Yeah.
I can't edit the notes because I am not signed in. Adrian has to do it.
And all right, speaking of the formatting.
Yep, we got it all. Oh, we have comments that I haven't been paying attention to.
There's quite a few in YouTube. I haven't been paying attention. I muted it.
There's comments in YouTube. Is that where y'all are getting those from?
Yeah.
Yep.
Apparently, Jason Daniel Stone is watching our cast and commenting on stuff.
Yeah, give me a link. I want to see.
I mean, if you should be able to view it on the right-hand side inside of StreamYard.
Later, Jason Daniel Stone.
I don't see anything.
All right.
Oh, there we go. Under comments.
And no one leaves. All right. Yeah, we're pretty much done. We got nothing else to talk about. You like my ghetto jug here? Is a milk carton I filled up with popcorn and cut the top off of because I didn't have any clean cups. So
all right, guys.
Hack for you right
we'll
there.
Hang out a little bit after cast, but I'll go ahead and end the cast now. Catch everybody next Wednesday.
Alrighty.